Everyone, Juliet here with my lovely Dr. Marion Bevington. How are you today, Marion?
I'm busy right now trying to check on the social media status, and other than that, I'm doing really well.
Okay, and you've had a quiet day or a busy day? What's been
A
going?
bit of both, actually. I was out and about for a while, and I had a lovely 3 hours with one of my favourite people, Tremaine, and we did some delving into the
Biopsychosocial model.
people.
Tremaine, and we
hang
did
on.
some delving.
There we are.
into
So
the
that means we're definitely on.
biopsychosocial model.
There we are.
So you've got a double. You've got something coming up twice on your
I did what? I did the fatal mistake.
fatal mistake.
Of having another window with the live running in it.
That's what I've just been turning off. So so we managed to turn that off.
And we're live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube. So hello Facebook, hello YouTube. Welcome to another week of sharing our shenanigans here at Elders Wisdom.
Yeah. So welcome. And I'm just looking for the chat button, which seems to be eluding me. So without the chat button. Anyway.
We'll see when chat comes up. I think I might notice, I can tell you.
Okay, well, we have two people, so it's lovely to see you, whoever you are. And just bear with me one moment so I can look for that chat button. So, Marion, tell me about Tremaine whilst I'm just looking. Who is Tremaine?
So Tremaine is a kinesiology teacher to me. That was how I met him. He works with kinesiology. He works with some similar models, psychotherapeutic models that I like. So we work together. One of the things that we do is IFS, the internal family system, which is like your inner family constellation.
Yeah.
And or constellations, because there's definitely more than one of them. Some of them are at war, and some of them are harmonious. And
some of your constellations are at war.
Yeah, I think most of us have that situation. I think that's what's at the root of physical symptoms.
Well, is that what's called parts therapy?
Yeah.
Internal family systems.
Yes, internal family systems. Yeah, parts. Okay. It's very interesting. And you do it with kinesiology. So you're not asking the conscious mind to stay in charge of everything. You allow what I call the innate wisdom body to speak. So that's, for me, that's the wisdom I can tap into, can be channeled through me in the form of kinesiology, which is muscle testing.
Okay, so that's an addition from the original family systems, internal family systems that I've heard, which is a bit like constellation work that you can do. You can either lay out a constellation with other people, or you can lay it out with pieces with things representing your different parts.
Yeah, I've got a lovely Russian doll that you can use.
Okay.
That's a really interesting one to do a constellation with. A Russian doll. Yeah, you give each little dolly a role. And so I really like that. I like looking at the different aspects of mind and seeing where there's the balance between the chaos and the harmony, or the conflict and the harmony. That balance is where I believe wellness is. That's where I think my wellness template lives, in that field of the balance between harmony and chaos, because chaos can make growth, but not when there's no harmony around.
Well, the chaos needs holding in some way, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So just coming back to click on a chat. If there's anybody here in the chat, can you just send a message? Because for some reason,
we're feeling all alone. We're on our lonesome.
I know, and it really triggers my insecurity patterns. It's like my deep attachment wounds get triggered. It's like, where is everybody? But
so recognize that you've got your inner family Somebody's just sent a message.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. That's lovely.
There we
are. Okay, that's fantastic.
So read them out for me when you're putting them up.
Okay, so Debbie says I'm here.
Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie. Hi. And Vibra Boxer, that mystery guest that we have, Vibra Boxer. Do you know who that is? Who's Vibra Boxer? I mean, that's such an interesting name, Vibra Boxer.
Love it.
Why do you call yourself Vibra Boxer? I'd love to know that.
Vibrant, like vibration, isn't it? It's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Vibra Boxer's here. That's it. That's quite a roll on the tongue, isn't it? Vibra Boxer. Vibra Boxer. And Ina's here. Oh, Vibra says we're looking good, beauties. Looking good, beauties. Thank you. Thank you, my lovely Vibra Boxer.
We are a reflection of you, darling.
We're a reflection. And Vibra Boxer says it's Carol. Carol, I know it's you, my darling. I know it's you. I've always wondered why you call yourself Vibra Boxer. I'd love to know, because you've had that name for a while. And I have sent a message on Facebook, so here is another one on YouTube, somebody said. Okay. So are we getting our messages through from YouTube or from Facebook?
Both, I think.
Okay.
Usually it has a little, it's got a coloured icon on so you'll see the person's face and it'll have a little red for YouTube.
You're right.
Facebook. Is that
every week we do this, I get to learn more. So I can see now that we've got messages coming through from YouTube and from Facebook. So that's lovely. That's like, I can feel how my heart is now settled now that I know you're all here. That I'm being received, that I'm being welcomed. I mean, it's so important, isn't it, to have that feeling like you're connecting and there's someone on the other end of the connection.
Yeah.
And I went to see a very lovely friend yesterday, and a very, very old friend. It's somebody that I've known since I was 23. And my lovely Vibra here knows who I'm talking about. And we haven't seen each other much over these last few years. And we're both saying it's like we've had 4 years missing out of our lives, because what happened with all the breaking of connections through the shenanigans, it was, it's like all the normal social fabric seemed to get disturbed. And, you know, this usual backwards and forwards kind of movement and connections between people got changed in some way. It didn't happen over that period of time, especially for people that were further apart. So Vibra Voxer says, did you hear about Andrew Bridgen suing Matt Hancock for libel? I do. So that brings us on to, we kind of lifting out of our therapy a little bit, into politics. And I was going to raise this because I've got a whole piece on Andrew Bridgen I was going to talk about a bit later on. And since you've raised it, Carol, he is indeed suing Matt Hancock for libel because, and I was looking, do you know actually what the remarks were? So Matt Hancock tweeted something about Andrew Bridgen, and Andrew Bridgen is taking Matt Hancock to court, and the court case is on the 1st of March. So that's the day after tomorrow. And I have the information right here. Okay, so he's taking Matt Hancock to court for defamation, and the court case is going to take place in the Royal Court of Justice. And Matt Hancock is saying, oh, you can't sue me for defamation because I never put your name on the tweet. And Andrew Bridgen said, it's quite obvious from what you said to me in that tweet that it was about me. And you knew that it was about me, and everybody else knew that it was about me, and I've got other people that saw the tweet that knew you were tweeting at me, so that's not really an excuse. So the court case is at 10:30, starts at 10:30 on Friday, in the media list in London, and Andrew Bridgen is going to update the court proceedings on his Twitter account. So anyone who can't come to the court case can get remote access from the court, and that's KB inquiries at justice.gov.uk. .uk. So I can type that up. I can put that there. If maybe I can, maybe I can't. Let me see. Add. I don't know if I can do this. So KB inquiries at justice.gov.uk. So.
And what do you send there?
That's just where you can listen in on this court case.
Oh, I see.
I think that's the link anyway, so you can follow it and find out what's going on with Matt Hancock. Of course, the real thing that Matt Hancock has done that Andrew Bridgen. Shall I go on and talk about this now or not?
Yeah, you may as well. Yeah.
Now that we've started, so yeah, I listened to a very in-depth interview between Andrew Bridgen and Jim Ferguson on Rumble the other day. Jim Ferguson is an ex-MP, and the discussion was about the excess deaths. And of course, the whole thing that Andrew Bridgen's been trying to bring this to Parliament for parliamentary debate. We've been discussing this over the last few weeks, and Rishi Sunak has been blocking it. Amongst other people, they don't want it to come out. And Matt Hancock, part of those excess deaths is what Midazolam Matt, as he's now called, has done to the elderly. He's genocided thousands of elderly in the care homes using, as we mentioned before, excess huge doses of midazolam and opiates, and putting the elderly on the excess, not excess.
Do not resuscitate.
End of life pathways, yeah.
That's it.
Sorry, I always get a bit scrambled when I try to multitask on this, so that's the problem. So I start to feel a little inarticulate when I'm trying to tell you about something and do the other things. So basically in this video with, shall I continue with this?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So Jim,
this is really important. This is about how politicians have affected our the elder generation. It's really important.
I mean, it's been horrific what's happened to the older generation. How many people have been murdered, and I think I've talked to a lot of people now that have said, "Oh, that happened to my parent or my grandfather, my grandmother, and so on." So this whole thing about what's been happening to the population globally is really, really shocking. And so it's been rolled out by the World Economic Forum in this whole move in Operation Lockstep to get everybody jabbed and so on. That's happened. And Jim Ferguson has been talking about this for a while. He's an ex-MP as well. And he's been pushing to bring this to light. And he set up a whole, I can't even remember what it's called, a whole website that's working against the globalists, basically. So it's a very powerful source of information that he's putting out. So Andrew Bridgen, in this interview, says that evidence is going to be presented that our government is has been involved in criminal activity. And sorry, there's just a chat. Elias, thank you, what you said. So I just paused for a minute. She said, yes, it is. And those that couldn't see their relatives in care homes are suffering. Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous. If your parent or your grandmother or whatever was one of those murdered in the care homes, I mean, it's something really terrible that is going on for you, isn't it? I mean, a huge grief around
it's
that.
Incarceration. It's absolute incarceration. That's what they've done, incarceration and genocide. And the incarceration is continuing, and they could ramp it up at any time and switch it all back on again, because they've now got those mechanisms in place, because they developed plenty that were rolled out during the shenanigans really super duper quickly. So there must have been so much resource preparation to do the 2020 stuff. And so now they've got so many more things that they can just drop in place. We are just incarcerated in that system.
Well, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to push back against the World Economic Forum pandemic treaty, the World Health Organization pandemic preparedness treaty, because Andrew Bridgen said he did take all that paperwork to a lawyer who said that once our country signs up for it, there's no way that we can ever get out of it again, and they will just roll out pandemic after pandemic, and we're completely locked into that system. So it's really vital that we push back against the World Economic Forum, who are unelected people that are running this whole show, and with a huge amount of corruption. So Bill Gates and Rishi Sunak massively invested in the jabs back before the pandemic. Before the pandemic happened, Rishi Sunak invested 500 million euros, I think it was, not pounds, maybe it was pounds, 500 million into Moderna and into the development of the jabs. He's massively implicated. And that's actually insider trading. Even that within itself is a crime, that he's done that, and he's profiting off the backs of the population. Yeah.
And they're so limited in what they actually appreciate that they often don't know that they're completely and utterly breaking the law, because they just parrot fashion repeat things that they don't really have any understanding or comprehension of. So they've got no idea, and it's that works in our favor quite frequently, doesn't it? Because they'll just say the truth and you'll see what the blatant abuse is, because they're just
they're completely arrogant. They're absolutely arrogant that they can do what they like. And Bill Gates his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is a genocidal, Planned Parenthood. It's all about limiting the population.
She's gone missing big time, hasn't she? She's not been anywhere. Have you seen any peep of her for a long time? Have you?
Bill and Melinda's been missing.
Yeah.
Well, they did have this divorce, and I think that was on the basis that she was really upset about Bill's involvement.
She'd already started looking like that male actor, wasn't it?
Well, she was a bit upset about Bill Gates has been involved with Epstein, and there's been repeated visits and connections between the two. So
it completely threw us off track there then, didn't it?
Yeah. So it's all been very, very, very corrupt. So in this interview with Jim Ferguson, Andrew Bridgen is talking about going to see the Metropolitan Police to he's written to lay out in front of the Mark Rowley, who's the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, the case for corruption within our government and criminal activity. And he's going to take that whole panel of whistleblowers and experts. He's going to have a 3-hour interview with Mark Rowley, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, who's the senior officer in the Metropolitan Police. And he's going to prove that the government's been involved in criminal activity. So that's alongside this whole defamation case with Matt Hancock. And hopefully on the back of that, Matt Hancock will also be taken to court for all the crimes that he's committed against humanity with the elderly. So Andrew Bridgen's got a ton of evidence that this has all been planned right from the beginning, and that in August 2019, he was warned by some intelligence officer, a special services officer, that the pandemic was going to happen and that he shouldn't take the jab.
This was Bridgen was warned.
Yeah, this is in August 2019, way before the jabs were even meant to have been developed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all planned.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's planned because when
meticulously orchestrated.
Absolutely meticulously orchestrated. And when we look at all those witness statements that he brought in that first discussion to Westminster Hall in December with David Martin, who
Mikey had a statement, didn't he?
Yeah, he made a very powerful statement, but also showed all the patents for the development of the jabs, not the development of the jabs, the development of the so-called virus, the gain of function research, where they took out the patents on developing this about 10 years ago or more. So it's been orchestrated
for decades and decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, orchestrated over decades and coordinated globally. So it's interesting that Andrew Bridgen is doing this and really working to bring our government to justice. Yeah, and that Rishi Sunak could face criminal charges over this, but it's also been happening in other countries. I've seen other people. There's a former judge, an MEP, European, I don't know whether he's Slovakian or something, but he's also been highlighting the excess death figures. So this is very interesting. Croatia's had 14.6% excess deaths, Italy 24.9%, Portugal has had 28.8%, Greece has had 31.2%, Spain has had 36.9% excess deaths, and Iceland has had 55.8%. So those are all countries that are absolutely have been heavily jabbed. But there's two countries, I'm just looking at my notes, which I had all in an orderly fashion when I started and now messed up. Anyway, Romania, that didn't really push through on the jabs, virtually no one. They've only had 2.4% deaths, and Bulgaria only 1.4%. So if you compare that with Iceland, 55.8%.
Yeah.
And in America, it's through the roof as well. There's a lot of people pushing back in America about it and trying to bring it to justice. And Andrew Bridgen said that a Pfizer executive boasted that 75% of all the Senate people, all the congressmen and women in the United States Senate have been have investments in big pharma, and that the Pfizer executive said that $10,000 would buy off any senator.
Wonder how many of them have been jabbed.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing that came out, wasn't it, with Jacinta Ardern, that she hadn't been. You know, she was really, really, really pushing this.
Oh, she'd not been, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that she hadn't been.
She's awful, isn't she? She's such a...
Yeah, she and Justin Trudeau and Macron and so on. But there's really the feeling now that, I mean, we haven't got there, but we have to keep pushing back because this all has been absolutely in lockstep, that all these leaders, Macron, Jacinta Ardern, Trudeau, Rishi Sunak, etc., they've all been in this young leadership school with Klaus, whatever his name is, Schwab.
Anal Schwab.
Anal Schwab. You know, we're all on this agenda, all on this genocidal agenda. Because, as we talked about a few weeks ago, Klaus Schwab's father was supplying to the Nazi movement in the war, the Second World War. So we have been systematically covering this, and we are making ground.
I heard someone say something the other day. It made me laugh, and it was about how what's been going on is like a continuation of what the Nazis were doing on all of the, especially with the all the eugenics. And he said, I bet you Hitler's really jealous. of just how far these eugenicists have come.
Yeah, maybe. So they're panicking because the Office of National Statistics did this huge thing about covering all the figures. So now instead of having excess deaths, we've got minus deaths. We've got less deaths than we would expect normally in this period of time.
Yeah, so they moved the line. They just got the line and they went, oh, there's some old people. Oh, and there's more people. Oh, look, this is great. They've just 60,000 deaths have just disappeared.
Yeah. But isn't that really suspicious in itself that that's happened?
This used to be my job.
Oh,
my very first job. So I came to London and did I did a degree in pure mathematics, statistics, and computer science. That was my degree. And the first job I got after I'd finished with the studying was into the civil service. And as a civil servant, I was in a Department of Energy. I was a statistician assistant, and then a database manager, and all these different jobs, all about data and statistics. And now I know all I was a hired masseur, a hired statistical masseur. So we were told what numbers to find in the data, and we went in and found the numbers we were told to find in the data, regardless of how we mistreated the data.
Wow.
Yes, so that's it's well known to me. I see statistics is back of a fag packet.
Yeah.
With a blunt pencil, really. It's just all complete made up gobbledygook.
It's all made up, yeah.
And then they come up with things like the GDP based on those statistics. So the economists and finance departments within all the other civil service departments are all feeding all of these data in, and those official figures, the GDP figures, the inflation, all these numbers are all supposedly made up of this massaged bunch of statistics that
it's all falsified from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely. It's like just a film. It's just a good film.
Yeah. And that was your job?
That was my job. That was my first job in IT in 1984, I think that was.
Okay. And did there come a point when you realized what was happening and you didn't want to?
No, not then. I mean, it was years later when I realized what was going on. But in my next job, I became suspicious because I was working in Coca-Cola distribution plants, and I was working on robots to help the distribution plant, and realized that we were putting 5,000 people out of work by replacing them with robots. That was a bit weird. And then I went into insurance. That was even weirder. The insurance world is so back of a fag box. Slide backhanders. Oh my God. I worked in Re-emergence. People have never even heard of. But basically, insurance gets insurance, gets insurance, gets insurance, gets
insurance.
Oh,
really?
And we pay. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. God. Insurance is it's a huge scam. It's great. It's all very clever.
So it's wonderful that we're beginning to see through now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good.
That veil of the system, it feels really solid and really dense because it's all this kind of complex technologies and complex communication systems. But actually, it is just that. It is just the veil between. And when you can see it like that as a system structure, like the Matrix, when you can really see that that's the role it's playing in your life, in your perception, in your psyche, then you can start to be free of the chains, I suppose, isn't it, of being locked in. And this is where, when we're finding our way out, when we're trying to find the things that we do want to do and how we want to do them, we have to have access to that freedom, that creativity. Whereas that when we're really locked in, we've lost that, haven't we, with all the straight lines and the concrete walls.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about really, getting that energy back, bringing back that power, and mobilizing yourself, realizing that you can make a difference. Not only that you can make a difference, but it's important because, you've incarnated on this earth for a purpose, a reason, that your soul brought you here for a specific reason. And are you in alignment with that, or are you now going to be totally stewed off and imprisoned, if you like.
Dragged around by the nose, by fear.
Yeah, absolutely controlled by fear, which is as soon as that happens, then it's the primitive brain that is running the show.
So then the creativity's gone, isn't it?
Yeah, creativity's totally gone, because it's not safe to be creative, because you're always like trying to take care of the next dangerous situation. And that's what they keep rolling out on us with all the false flags and the media non-stop, that there's something to be fearful of. So we have here, Jack has said, did you see all the photos at the time of top people being jabbed with the cap still on their needles? No, I didn't see those particular set of photos. But we did see in the beginning, didn't we, a lot of really dodgy things like Boris Johnson and different people rolling up their sleeves for some kind of fake thing. I mean, once you've seen it, it's so obvious that it's all like a movie script.
Lights, camera, action, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we've spotted so much of that going on now, about that with the so-called war in that place beginning with you, that it's been going on, and in, you know, the other places, loads of it. So Tucker Carlson, who's my hero of the moment, I mean, he's really pumping out a lot of information. He interviewed somebody called Steve Kirsch about the number of jab deaths. And this person, Steve Kirsch, has also requested data from VAERS to see what the data says, but he's been refused by the CDC. They're trying not to give him the data, which is exactly the same as what's happening to Andrew Bridgen. He said, if they would only provide the data that they have, we could settle this. And it's like, there doesn't need to be an argument, just bring out the data and we'll just look at it, and we'll see there's a problem, and we'll know what to do. Because meanwhile, they're still jabbing people. They're still pushing, even pregnant women, they're still pushing it, you know?
No. Categorically safe and effective.
Yeah, they're still lying about it. And but he said anyway, he can analyze the data that came from New Zealand. That man, the data analyst that released that data from New Zealand, that showed that every time there was a booster, that correlating with that, there was a massive spike in deaths. It was absolutely irrefutable.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile, Queensland's Supreme Court has ruled that jab mandates are illegal, so that's stopping there. So that's good. We are getting some leverage on this situation.
It's Queensland, Australia, is that?
Queensland in Australia. Yeah. So they've really been.
Australia was very locked in, wasn't it?
Well, it is locked in. I mean, if you want to go into the whole cabal stuff in the tunnel system and things, and what's happened there, which has so far been out of our remit to talk about on this, but yeah. Anyway, so also, Jim Ferguson, I think, has said the siege of Paris is well underway now, and there are millions in France who are supporting the farmers. And do you know what? We saw tractors on Glastonbury High Street the other day.
Oh, brilliant.
A little farmers' protest here. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Cool.
That's great. So let's hear from who's here. Does anyone have anything they want to share? What's been happening for you? How can you, for instance, when did you suddenly become aware of what's going on? Was there like a pivotal moment when you suddenly felt like, this is a show, we're being manipulated, or this isn't true, or anything that you were suspicious of? Does anybody want to share about that? Because we each have this point when they use this term waking up, but it's not really waking up, isn't it? Is it? It's just like when we stop trusting the establishment, when we believe that the establishment is there really supporting us and working for us, but now suddenly we find that we've been manipulated by it, and there's been a lot of lies. They are lying to us. They're not supporting. They're not doing this for our good. They're lying. So has anybody here got that experience when suddenly they realized? Yeah, so we've got no, I mean years ago the jab thing was just one thing. So am I saying your name properly? Elias? Is that how you say your name? Excuse me if I've got it wrong, but she says years ago really, that you realized, or do you mean this jab thing? I mean years ago, so, or the jab thing. So when did you realize? And lovely Carol said, they said the tractors in Glastonbury were going through for a charity event. Well, I didn't see that. Sounds suspicious. Well, it's very coincidental, and we were all cheering them on, so that's great. So Elias said when she was at school, she realised. So can you explain what that was? What was it precisely that suddenly? Marion, do you have a point when you woke up?
Well, yeah, I remember seeing the 9/11 stuff in. It was about 3 years after it had actually happened, and not even thought about anything. Didn't follow anything to do with politics. It wasn't in my life at the time. And I was in India, and we had a guy that had all these films on his computer. We'd sit and watch in the evening sometimes. And we watched a film called Zeitgeist, a documentary film called Zeitgeist that had just come out. And yeah, that was a massive, like, just putting all these dots together.
So suddenly you went dot, 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 dot. It's all...
Yeah, because it went through religion, money, and war were the three key areas. They were talking about how they the control and what the matrix is all about. But it was the deliberateness that was the wake up for me. It was the absolute deliberate this what I call meticulous orchestration.
Yeah.
That was my wake up to the amount of that, because I'd never thought we'd been to the moon, because we'd never been back, and there's all these reasons why we couldn't get there, and they can't even remember in NASA anymore how they managed it. Apparently, it's just all weird. And so I've never really thought about the moon landings as a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't really even know why, because I was only 4 when it happened, or 5, but I've just never felt that that's what actually happened. I think you saw it on the telly, and it was a part of the telly.
I was glued to the telly for that moon landing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, I was really little, so I don't. But yeah, so I think for me, it was a couple of years after the 9/11 thing, and just seeing the deliberate, absolute, I mean, Building 7, what just, yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy amount of absolute barefaced lies.
Yeah, when I look at it now, because I've looked at loads of videos, it seems totally unfeasible that that was real.
Well, the last apparent crash was filmed by a lot of people that didn't have anything going into the building. It was only on the official recording that there was something going into the building. So it was just like a CGI add-on.
Yeah, well, they can create anything with holograms.
Artificial intelligence is coming out now, but they've had it for years. It's not like it's new stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that there's plenty of that building. Just the second one just exploded. It didn't get any hit.
No.
But that, and then this Building 7, which didn't get touched, fell at free fall speed, just like.
Yeah. I mean, it's all ridiculous when you look at it.
Yeah.
So Elias says, when I was at school is when she woke up. Oh, right. Pronounced Elias. Elias. Okay. I'll try and hopefully I get it right for you, Elias, the name is. So what else have we got here? So is there anybody else added something? I'm not doing very good with this chat this week. Okay, I've got the slide bar now. Okay. So Jack said, I really resonated with what you said last week, that if we couldn't trust our parents growing up, we are less likely to fall for these psyops now. So yes, that was from the psychologist, the New Zealand psychologist, talking about attachment, that if we have attachment trauma, then we're less likely to attach to the authorities, because we've always been distrustful of authority. But for those people that have had a secure attachment, then they transition in adulthood, they transition to the governing body, to the authority over them, and therefore they're more likely to be taken in. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So Jack resonated with that last week. Let's just pop that up there. So Jack, when was your moment of waking up? Elias said punk rock and listening and reading woke you up. Was there a particular thing? She also said that I also just knew. I questioned everything, especially the education system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we might be similar ages then, because I'm sure punk rock was a big influence on my political views as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. May well have been. So Debbie said she's always realised, as Ike set the whole thing out years ago, so it didn't come as a surprise. Of course, having the quacks didn't even enter my head, and I thought it would be the same. Hang on, I keep blanking out what I'm reading. And I thought it would be the same for... hang on, sorry about this. Okay. You have to forgive me. This is very fiddly trying to move these little boxes and this slide thing. You have no idea.
Can you not do the 2-finger slide? Does that work?
Oh, it is now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, techie Marion. Okay. So, but the thing is, Marion, it does this thing like it suddenly when I get to certain point it covers up with a blue box, so I have to be careful.
That's when you're hovering over the text. It's asking you if you want to add the text in as a subtitle.
Yeah.
So we're having a technical lesson in the middle of the Elder's Wisdom today.
I know we're doing fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the screen, but I can't read it so well from the screen because it's in blue. But everybody else can read it, so I'll read it again from Marion. She said she always realised as Ike set the whole thing out years ago, so it didn't come as a surprise. Of course, having the quacks didn't even enter my head, and I thought it would be the same for many, but I was very surprised how many went for it.
Yeah.
Weren't we all? Wasn't that shocking? I mean, I don't think we've recovered from the shock of that, actually. I mean, it's really shocking. And then she also says there's been particular times like 2012. What happened in 2012?
The grand procession of the great equinox or something, wasn't it?
Okay, so that was, yeah.
That was the Age of Aquarius, one of the...
But that wasn't a negative thing. That was a positive thing, but maybe the energy of that woke people up.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what...
Yeah.
What it was.
She said learning about the world, the government, etc. As well. So what about Carol? I know that Carol has been aware of these things, haven't you, darling, for a long time? Jack says, I think I was awake, but I've never trusted so-called authority figures. I was very argumentative at school. Yeah. That sounds familiar. Were you argumentative at school, Marion?
Me?
Yeah.
Me? No.
No, not you. You didn't.
I got thrown out of the RE lesson because I was saying how Jesus said don't pray on street corners. So if you're making a show of yourself going to prayer, that's Jesus said don't do that. That's why you shouldn't go to mass. And I dug my heels in with my argument, so I got uninvited from the RE classes.
You mean you got dropped from the RE classes? Okay. So Therese is here. Hi, Therese. Lovely to see you. I didn't realise you were here. It's lovely you're here. She says, I woke up when the virus appeared. I was the only one not quaxed out of 50 colleagues. So you're under huge pressure when you left. So you were in the NHS, yeah? Am I allowed to say that? Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. But yeah, huge amount of people were manipulated. And it's quite interesting. I've seen the figures that actually very small percentages of doctors and nurses did actually end up getting jabbed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but has anybody else got any waking up things to share there?
When did you wake up to what's going on, Juliet?
When did I? Well, I think I fell for the pandemic in the first moment of it happening. But I'd been out in Israel in December of that year. I was in Jerusalem on a Thomas Hubel retreat. Might be pronouncing his surname wrong. I always get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A collective trauma retreat, and the whole class, there was about 200 of us there. They were all coughing like crazy. It just got worse and worse. And there were some people from Beijing there that I ended up actually being friends with one of them. And then we went off to Jordan together. And I got tremendously ill at that time. And I'm saying like, oh, I never get ill, which I don't. I have an incredible immunity to things. But I did. By the time I got back here, I was really, really ill. Mm-hmm. And then the stories came out about this is happening, this pandemic is happening. And I was kind of noticed it and read it. And then I started thinking, well, I wonder if that's just what happened to me in Jerusalem. And, I was with these Chinese people and like it all seemed feasible then. And then I started buying into it for a short while, for a few weeks, because I was so ill. And I was so low that I think I kind of bit into that poisoned apple of the fear porn. Mm-hmm. And then when they started putting out all their propaganda and all the linguistic programming, like hands, face, space, these 3 words that go together, they did a lot of that, and how rapidly they rolled it out on the streets. It's like they had to be prepared. They couldn't have just like, oh, there's this emergency, we better find a way of dealing with it. They had it all there, ready to go, all the markings on the streets, all the tapes on the windows, and the one-way round things, and all the media. That kind of stuff would have taken months and months to prepare it. It'd be very interesting for somebody to analyze how long would it take to set up a whole thing like that, because the factories had to be in production for months ahead of time. So when all that happened, it's like, this is weird. I don't believe this. Plus, the instructions they were giving us were totally contrary to what you would do for good health. This separation apart. It's like, if you want to support people's immune system, you don't keep them away from each other. You keep them close to each other.
Quarantining well people, not sick people.
Yeah. So there were so many things, and locking the beaches, for instance, and blocking the park benches. They took the park benches away from Glastonbury High Street. So people couldn't sit down. It's like, but it started making me
like, who took them? Where did they put them? How was that all arranged?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was very funny because
it's all part of this bigger plan, this meticulous orchestration.
Yeah, but some of the local kind of people that like to sit on the high street brought some sofas along and put them in the place, and we're all hanging out on the sofas.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I very rapidly just simply didn't trust it. And then I was so angry about what was going on that I just started going down rabbit holes. And although I was like deeply anti-authority and so on, I actually joined up way more dots than I'd had joined up before. And I've just been researching ever since. So now I see so much of what's going on. So Ina says, okay, let me go back. Jack says 1212 was the Mayan calendar hype. Okay.
2012, yeah.
Okay, he says 1212 for some reason.
All right.
And Ina said, apart from David Icke's biggest secret. What does he mean by that?
That's one of his books.
Oh, okay. And it's right. And she used to watch Project Camelot with Bill Ryan, Kerry Cassidy, who had amazing and interesting guests talking about weird and wonderful things. Also a big fan of Lucas Alexander on the Age of Truth TV. Have you seen him? I don't know.
I'm just thinking how different people's lives are, because I know most of those names now, and I know they're great at delivering information that's got lots of truth in it. But they were never part of my awareness until recently. I think that's the other thing, is I was aware of the political mess, but not aware of who was actually, what champions are out there, what dissidents are out there, if you like, championing the cause. So it's lovely that, to be, those circles were very big and wide, and now it's great that,
they're all coalescing, aren't they? The circles of all the people that are
weaving together
back. So Kerry Cassidy is amazing, and she's been going for a long time. I think since the 70s, bringing forward whistleblowers and things about extraterrestrials and all sorts of things. 2012 awakened me, says Elias, to feel more of what was going on. It was like another gateway. Yeah, so there's been layers upon, there's been these stepping stones, hasn't there? Jack says 2012, sorry. Elias says, how about going forward? I feel there may be something else coming, or maybe my trauma response. Do you want to explain about that, your trauma response?
I think what happens is when we've got concerns about the future, that concern is a real energy vampire, isn't it? And it's only in our imagination. It's not here and now. And I think a lot of the work is about coming back to the here and now. Do you know, I had this really cool thing the other day, Juliet, where I got a real sense of when I'm feeling lost, feeling really lost, don't know where I am, don't know what it is. And at the same moment, I just had a thought, what if you could be safe and lost? And just got this really lovely shift in the quality of that experience. If you feel safe and lost, and trying to find examples of where in life I've been safe and lost. It was a really interesting, soothing, it's like a self-soothing thought that
and what brought that thought on? What you were going through at that time when you had that?
It was just a really ordinary situation where there was something had happened online, and I was going into the kitchen. So I was switching between whatever the communication had been here into kitchen mode. And I just got this, because, with the visual distortion and everything, I just got this feeling of, oh no, I'm lost. I don't know the direction I'm even facing. And just that, in that moment, just this idea of, if I could bring, because I didn't feel safe, because that habituated sense of loss is not safe.
No.
So it was how to unweave the lack of safety from lost. And separate it into two things.
Yeah. I think Peter Levine talks about this a lot in somatic experience, is uncoupling the frozen trauma energies. It's like you take it apart, so that once you take it apart, and then you can begin to be a lot more resourced. So as long as it's coupled and you're locked into that, it's self-perpetuating.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to hear it.
So that's good. So I mean, we all have the impact of what we've been through, whether we've been taken in or we've been awake to it, we've been awake to the lies or not. I mean, it's seriously impactful, the abuse that's been done to the population, and it's affected all of us.
It is.
All of us.
Being able to find these paths back to this aspect of safety is really key as well, isn't it, for all of us? Because that's where the creativity can come back in, when you're safe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the intentions for certainly when we started Elders Wisdom in the beginning, was about, okay, how can we reconnect? How can we rebuild a community? How can we talk about our experiences? Because it's like what we're experiencing is a collective trauma, the impact of a massive process of collective traumatization. And as I was saying to my friend yesterday, we've been in a state of shock and completely numb to the extent, the depth of how badly we were traumatized by what they rolled out on us. I mean, the level of abuse that's been done to us as a population, as a global population, is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it's down to us to actually repair. You know, they've deliberately been trying to break the links between people. And it's up to us now to rebuild, to create that sense of safety and well-being, and to reach out and recouple, you know, uncoupling the frozen trauma energies, but recoupling our connections back together and reweave the bonds between each other, as well as the reweaving, you know, into our internal family systems to bring that back into harmony and alignment, and that we don't have warring parts.
You need a really key aspect of your own centered, adult, connected, personal self, because it's through that channel, like higher self channel, whatever you want to call it, when you're at your best and you're balanced and you're equanimous and things are harmonious, in that connection, you can then reparent broken children aspects of yourself, or you can love the hard aspects of yourself. There's ways to rebalance, regain balance, but the key to that balance is this balanced, centered, compassionate sense of self, which is lovely, because that's a really lovely, like a Buddhist or a yogic teaching, what a self with a capital S, the Atma, is it's that sense that then manages and helps to heal all these fragmented pieces. And this is where I think that for me, that's what creativity really gives me access to, that ability in me to center into that wisdom. And again, it's part of the same innate wisdom body that I perceive is what's at play when we're doing the kinesiology, or with dowsing, or with, divining instruments. They're all, to me, they're all tapping into this same wisdom field.
Yeah. So I'm just noticing we're coming up to, it's getting quite late in the show, and Carol is just sharing her experiences. So we'll just come back to this if that's okay. She says, mine is a long story, many different events and awakenings in my life from the age of 3 onwards. So Vibra Voxer, would you like to give an example of that? Do you want to write something that's an example? I mean, what happened at 3, for instance? And Ina says, been following them for years, long before the COVID. So Carol says, too much to express, but always have known. Yeah. So that
underneath, I think that's what helps us. We recognize that we do know this. That's where the truth is, isn't it? Where there's a recognition of something, knowledge that's sacred and wise.
Yeah.
How lovely.
Yeah.
And there's the bells of the church, so it's 7.
Okay, that's beautiful that you've got the bells of the church there in the middle of London.
I know. And it's not even Big Ben.
Oh. So Carol said she was locked in the bathroom by her kindergarten teacher for laughing during prayers.
Oh, wow. God. Monster. That's a monstrous act, isn't it?
When you were 3.
That's shattering to many aspects of the developing self, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's send some love to little Carol, little 3-year-old Carol.
Yeah. Locked in the toilet. What does she need? Can we send her a pneumatic drill?
Yeah, you're going to tunnel your way out.
Or Mary Poppins can come and save you. Oh, well, I think that's been very interesting. The Andrew Bridgen stuff is getting interesting, isn't it? And
yeah, I did line up his video to have a little look at it, but it's a bit late now.
it's too late.
Yeah, but I can put the link underneath. In fact, I probably have already posted it on the Facebook page. Debbie says, a really wonderful show, so enjoyable. Thank you, Marion and Julia.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you, Debbie.
Really nice. So, what little feedback, because we're kind of like,
my feedback, Juliet, is it's an hour and I'm starving.
Oh, you in your stomach.
I've got another call at 8 and I don't want to be.
All right. Well, we won't. But maybe just put some comments under here, because it'd be really great to get some, that we can look at later. So it'd be really great to get some.
Keep the conversation going, and hashtag replay if you're not watching us live.
Yeah, and we've been doing some little shorts as well, so we're picking out key things. And just to say, finally, that we haven't heard yet a judgment about Julian Assange, so we're still holding him in our prayers. And sorry about your stomach, but I do want to say this, Marion, is that we have won. He has won. Whatever they say in that judgment, whatever they do, he is the most incredible man. And morally, the integrity that he's shown, that he's stood by, actually working for truth and transparency and being moral, is a massive thing. And it's like, no matter what they do to him, they can't take that away. They can't destroy, so he's had loads of awards, Nobel Prize awards and all sorts of awards for best journalism. They can never take that away. And the worse they do, the more they put themselves in a bad light for how evil and bad they are. So I just think that he's a remarkable soul, and I'm very grateful for Julian, and I'm very grateful for all of us, that each one of us is bringing forward, that we're keeping in touch with our humanity and bringing forward our creativity and doing what we can to make a difference in the world. So Debbie says, oh, bless you, she's starving too. She said, we're so knowledgeable and she's starving too. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful evening. Loads of love to you all. Thank you
next week.
Thank you, lovely ladies. Okay, and see you next week. Bye for now.